Cancel the florist. Those were the first words my mother said to me on the morning of my wedding. Not, good morning. Not, you look beautiful. Not even, I'm proud of you. Just, cancel the florist. I remember standing in the middle of my apartment, still wearing my silk robe, my makeup half finished, my phone pressed tightly against my ear while the sound of my mother's cold voice echoed through my chest like a crack in glass. At first, I thought she was joking. Mom, what? The florist, she repeated impatiently. Your sister's birthday venue needs more flowers. They can send yours there instead. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Outside my bedroom window, the morning sun poured across the city. My wedding day had finally arrived after 2 years of planning, saving, crying, stressing, and dreaming. And somehow, my mother was asking me to give my wedding flowers to my younger sister. Again, it sounds unbelievable now, but if you had known my family, you would understand that nothing in my life had ever truly belonged to me. Not birthdays, not achievements, not attention, everything always found its way back to my sister, Vanessa. The favorite child, the golden daughter, the one who could destroy a room and still somehow be called innocent afterward. Growing up, I used to think maybe I was imagining it. Maybe every older sister felt invisible. Maybe every daughter spent her childhood trying to earn love that should have been given freely. But deep down, I always knew, I was loved conditionally. Vanessa was loved completely, and my wedding day would become the final proof of that truth. But what I didn't know that morning was that years later, those same people would stand in front of my house begging me for help after losing everything. And I would have to decide whether broken daughters owe loyalty to the families who broke them. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 32 years old. And this is the story of how my family destroyed me. Before I finally stopped letting them. I met Ethan 6 years before our wedding. Back then, I was working double shifts at a publishing company in Chicago, trying to pay off student loans while pretending I wasn't exhausted every second of my life. Ethan walked into the office carrying coffee for an entire meeting room because the assistant had called in sick. Most people wouldn't remember a moment like that. But I did, because he smiled at everyone equally. Even me. Especially me. You have to understand something. When you grow up emotionally ignored, kindness feels shocking. Dangerous, even. I wasn't used to people noticing me without wanting something in return. But Ethan noticed everything. He noticed when I skipped lunch because I was stressed. He noticed when my hands shook during presentations. He noticed how uncomfortable I became whenever my family called. One night after work, he finally asked me the question nobody had ever asked before. Why do you look guilty every time your mother's name appears on your phone? I laughed it off, but he kept looking at me with those calm brown eyes that somehow made lying impossible. So I told him the truth. Or at least part of it. I'm just not really the important child in my family. He frowned. What does that even mean? At the time, I didn't know how to explain decades of emotional neglect in one sentence. How do you explain always being second place? How do you explain parents who clap louder for one daughter while barely seeing the other? How do you explain sitting alone at your own birthday dinner because your sister suddenly wanted sushi instead of Italian? Or having your college graduation skipped because your sister had a dance competition? How do you explain spending your entire childhood shrinking yourself so someone else could shine brighter? So instead, I shrugged and smiled. It's complicated, but Ethan didn't let complicated scare him away. That was the beginning of everything. And honestly, it was also the beginning of the end. Vanessa hated Ethan immediately, not because he was rude, not because he treated me badly, but because he loved me openly. And people like Vanessa cannot stand watching someone they consider less important receive genuine love. The first time she met him was during Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. I still remember how nervous I felt driving there. Ethan reached over and squeezed my hand. You're shaking. I always shake before seeing my family. Why? I stared out the car window. Because I never know who I'm supposed to be when I'm there. He looked confused, but before he could ask more questions, we pulled into the driveway. The moment we entered the house, my mother rushed past me. Straight to Vanessa. Oh my God, sweetheart, you look exhausted. Sit down. I made your favorite potatoes. Vanessa smiled dramatically. Thanks, Mom. Today's been so stressful. Neither of them acknowledged me for almost 30 seconds. Ethan noticed. I could tell by the slight tightening in his jaw. Finally my father looked up from the television. Oh, Claire's here, like I was a delivery package. Not his daughter. Then he noticed Ethan. And who's this? Ethan extended his hand politely. Ethan Brooks, sir, it's nice to meet you. Dad shook his hand once before returning his attention to Vanessa, who had already begun complaining about her newest boyfriend. That night during dinner, every conversation somehow revolved around her. Her job, her social life, her upcoming birthday, her skincare routine. At one point, Ethan tried asking me about a promotion I had recently earned. Before I could answer, my mother interrupted. Vanessa's thinking about starting her own business. Of course she was. Vanessa was always thinking about things. Thinking about becoming an influencer. Thinking about acting. Thinking about fashion school. Thinking about real estate. But she never finished anything because my parents rescued her from consequences every single time. Meanwhile, I had worked since I was 16. No one rescued me. No one even asked if I needed help. After dinner, Ethan helped me wash dishes in silence. Finally he whispered softly, "Your family treats you differently." I laughed bitterly. "Took you one evening to notice." He dried his hands slowly. "Claire, that's not normal." I still remember the strange ache in my chest hearing those words. Because when you spend your whole life being emotionally neglected, someone calling it wrong feels almost painful. Part of me wanted to defend them. Another part wanted to cry. Instead, I just said, "You get used to it." But Ethan looked at me in a way nobody ever had before. With sadness. Not pity. Not judgment. Sadness. And somehow that hurt even more. The years passed. Ethan proposed to me during a quiet weekend trip near Lake Michigan. No cameras. No audience. No giant performance. Just him kneeling beside the water at sunset, his voice shaking slightly as he asked if I would spend forever with him. I cried before he even finished the question. Because for the first time in my life, someone was choosing me first. I called my parents afterward. My mother's reaction, "Oh wow, that's exciting, exciting," like I'd announced a grocery sale. Then she added, "By the way, Vanessa's birthday is coming up. Don't forget this year." I should have recognized the warning hidden inside that sentence. But I didn't, because some part of me still believed weddings could heal families. I thought maybe this once, my parents would see me. I was wrong, terribly wrong. Wedding planning became a nightmare almost immediately. My mother criticized every decision. "The venue is too simple. Your dress isn't glamorous enough. Why aren't you inviting more people from Vanessa's side?" Vanessa herself acted strangely competitive about everything. When I showed her my wedding shoes, she bought more expensive ones for her birthday dinner. When I booked a makeup artist, she suddenly hired the same one for a photo shoot. It felt exhausting, but I kept telling myself to stay calm, to be mature, to avoid drama. That's what daughters like me are trained to do. Swallow pain quietly, make excuses for everyone else. Stay grateful for crumbs. Then came the phone call that changed everything. 3 weeks before the wedding. I was reviewing seating charts when my mother called sounding irritated. "You need to move your wedding date." I laughed awkwardly. "What? Vanessa's birthday party falls the same weekend." I blinked. "Mom, my wedding invitations already went out months ago." "Well, her event is important too." I genuinely thought she was kidding. "She has a birthday every year. And you only get married once," my mother snapped. "Exactly. Which means your sister shouldn't have to spend her birthday overshadowed by you." Overshadowed by my wedding. I felt something inside me crack slightly. Not loudly, just enough to hurt. "Mom, are you serious? You've always been selfish about attention." Selfish. The word echoed through me like poison. I spent my entire life stepping aside for Vanessa. And somehow I was still selfish. That night, Ethan held me while I cried quietly into his chest. "You don't deserve this. I just want one day," I whispered. "One day where I matter too." He kissed my forehead gently. "You matter every day." I wanted to believe him. But deep down, old wounds don't disappear easily. Sometimes love arrives long after damage has already settled into your bones. Then came the wedding morning. The florist call. The final humiliation. After hanging up, I stared at myself in the mirror. My makeup artist asked carefully, "Are you okay?" And suddenly, I started laughing. Not happy laughter. The kind that comes when pain becomes too heavy to hold normally. Because somehow, even on my wedding day, my family still found a way to make it about Vanessa. I should have known then. I should have cancelled everything. But I didn't, because despite everything, I still wanted my parents there. I still wanted them to choose me. Even after all those years. That's the saddest part about daughters like me. We keep hoping, even when hope destroys us. The ceremony started at 4 o'clock. Guests filled the beautiful lakeside venue while soft violin music floated through the air. I stood in the bridal suite trembling with nervous excitement. Ethan looked perfect. The weather was perfect. Everything should have been perfect. Except my parents still hadn't arrived. Neither had Vanessa. I checked my phone repeatedly. No messages. No calls. Nothing. At 4:15, guests began whispering. At 4:30, my wedding planner looked concerned. Finally my phone buzzed. It was my mother. For one beautiful second, relief flooded through me. Then I answered, and my entire world changed. "Claire, we're going to miss the ceremony." My stomach dropped. What? Vanessa's birthday brunch ran late. I couldn't speak. My mother continued casually, "We'll come to the reception instead." The room around me blurred. "You're missing my wedding." "It's not intentional," she sighed impatiently. "Stop being dramatic." Dramatic. My hands started shaking violently. Across the room, Ethan noticed my expression immediately. He crossed toward me fast. What happened? I couldn't answer, because something inside me was breaking in real time. And deep down, I think I finally understood. They were never going to choose me. Not even now. Not even today. Not ever.